Okay, hello students. We're in Unit C now, and this is the circulatory system. We're talking about biology in this unit. So, our goal is to describe in general terms the role of the heart and lungs in the circulatory system and the exchange and distribution of matter processed by the digestive system. So, today's lesson will focus on this part, circulatory system. We'll do digestive system in another part. Okay? All right. So, what is a system? It says it's an interrelated group of things that can be defined by their boundaries. So, I'll just give you two examples. So, the Earth definitely has boundaries. We can see that pretty clearly. And then all of the things on the planet Earth are related. Plants grow. We eat plants. Other animals eat plants. We eat those animals. The weather affects how plants grow, and so the whole circle of life thing, right? Okay. Now, the circulatory system is the same thing. There's a boundary, right? Your body is the boundary of your circulatory system. Boundary. But of course, it's interrelated. So your blood circulating, the circulatory system is connected to the respiratory system, your breathing. It's also connected to the digestive system, your eating. And so all these systems all these things are interrelated, they have boundaries. That's what a system is. So what are the purposes of the circulatory system? Well, I'm going to mention three. They are to deliver nutrients and oxygen. So your blood is like imagine it contains little trucks, little delivery trucks, and they're delivering nutrients and oxygen to cells in your body. They're also like garbage trucks. They go and they pick up waste, and they're like FedEx or Purelator Courier. They deliver messages, or like an email or a text message. Okay? All right. Good. Moving on. Now, I did this demo in class for some that were there, or a demo similar to this. If you were to take a tennis ball and just start squeezing it, how many times do you think you could squeeze that tennis ball in 1 minute? So I did this with students. We did dumbbells. We just did dumbbell curls. Anyway, eventually that muscle gets tired, right? Your bicep gets tired. Think about the difference between that and a heart, though. The average person's heart beats 70 to 80 times per minute. Imagine doing 80 curls in a minute, even with a light weight. Okay? That's 70 to 80 beats per minute, 42 million beats per year, and over 3 billion beats in a lifetime. And that heart muscle just keeps doing it. Like your bicep gets tired when you work it. Your heart muscle just never gets tired. It just keeps going. Isn't that amazing? Your body is a miracle. All right, so the cardiac muscle works without tiring. Cardiac means heart. So your heart muscle works without tiring. And it's different than the skeletal muscle in your biceps, for example. It has different structures to it. Now, we don't have to go into, I just wanted to show this. You don't have to memorize these, but just notice that cardiac muscle has a different structure. There's this kind of structure, so these strands. There's this kind of structure, and then your cardiac muscle has these strands, but then also has these connectors, okay? So anyway, that's what the muscle looks like. There's different types of muscle structure in your body. All right, now I want you to know the structures in the heart. So those two, first of all, are vein caves. These are veins. Veins go towards the heart. Arteries go away from the heart. These are giant veins. They're big caves, vein caves. So vein cave, vena cava. Superior means on top. If you're inferior, you're on the bottom. the inferior vein cave, the superior vein cave. Anyway, that's the first one. Blood flows to the vena cava. This is coming from the upper body, this is coming from the lower body. Okay. Next, we have the right atrium. So blood flows and enters into the right atrium. And then it goes through a tricuspid valve and ends up in the right ventricle. So if I was to draw this again, blood comes in here, blood comes in here, kind of in behind, comes there, goes down through this valve, which is the tricuspid valve, into this, which is the right ventricle. Now remember, you might be looking at this thinking, wait, the right is actually on the left side. You always have to imagine that you're standing behind the heart. So if you're behind this heart, this is the right side, this is the left side. Okay. Next we have the pulmonary semilunar valve, and then the pulmonary artery, and then the pulmonary veins. Okay, so let's see how this works. So blood is here right now. It goes up through the pulmonary semilunar valve. Pulmonary means lungs. Okay? So this is heading towards the lungs. Semilunar, a moon. Lunar is moon. Okay, so looks kind of like a little half moon here, right? Anyway, pulmonary semilunar valve. And then blood goes off to the, this would go under here, kind of behind here, and then out, off to the lungs. So through the pulmonary, the lung artery, arteries always go away from the heart. Veins go towards the heart, like this one. Arteries go away. Okay? And then, if I was to draw a set of lungs here, the blood goes into the lungs, picks up oxygen, and then comes back. Okay, through the pulmonary veins. Veins go to the heart. Okay, so same thing over here. There's a lung. Blood went to the lung, picked up oxygen, and back here, now this kind of goes in behind, empties into here, empties into there. Okay? All right, I'm going to clear those off. And then blood goes into the left atrium. It goes through the bicuspid valve, and then it goes into the left ventricle. So a couple of things to notice here. So the blood's now here, goes through this valve, and notice this is what we call your ventricle. Notice how thick that muscle is right there. This muscle is very, very thick. That's because this ventricle, when it pumps, when it squeezes, it's got to pump the blood to the whole body. Okay? So that's where your strongest muscle is, as compared to this, which is not quite as strong as a muscle. Okay? All right, so the ventricle contracts, squeezes, and then pushes blood to the rest. It's called an aortic valve, and then the aorta, and then there's the aorta that goes to the lower part of the body. So blood then goes through this valve right here. We're in behind this. And then let me change the color of this. How do I do that? And then blood comes here and goes out into the head and arms, upper body. And then this curls in kind of behind and then down. I want you to memorize all of those structures. Okay? Next. Some things you might want to remember. The tricuspid valve. I just think of a tricycle. There's a little kid riding a bike in there. Maybe that'll help you remember tricuspid valve. Here's a bicuspid valve. Tri means three, so it has three flaps. The bicuspid valve only has two flaps. You'll see pictures of that a little bit later here. Okay, so tricycle, bicycle. Okay. Pulmonary, so I talked about that, looked like, shaped like a moon. Semilunar. All right, let's talk about this. Blood flow. So blood flows from the heart into the aorta, and then it goes into things called arteries. These are blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart. Artery away. Okay? They're under high pressure, 130 millimeters of mercury. And then we go into things called arterioles. And arterioles are smaller arteries that lead to capillaries or capillaries. Okay, I'll show you all this in a little bit better in just a sec. At the capillary level, that's where gases are exchanged. That's where oxygen goes in and out of the cells. It's these get so narrow that blood cells are going through like single file at some point. Okay, they're very fragile, easily damaged, and that's why if you get just a little cut, it starts bleeding because you got the surface is full of these capillaries. And if you do get a bruise, what's happened is something has damaged the blood vessels, the tiny, thin little capillaries, and they've been damaged, they've broken, blood has formed, and your body needs to come and clean up that blood that has spilled out of the capillaries, just kind of into the tissues. Okay. When that happens, you get a bruise. That's the fancy word for that is a hematoma. Okay, so let me just show you here. Here's our artery right here. Artery branches into an arteriole, and then into these capillaries, and then we're going to go into venules, and then the vein. Okay, so that's coming up next. Okay, here's another way to look at it. So again, blood is flowing into the artery, branches off into smaller arterioles, and then into these really small ones called capillaries, venules, veins. Okay, and again, there's another look at it. You can see we go from the heart to the artery, arteriole, capillary, venule, vein, back to the heart, right? So, okay, and then back to the heart. All right, now we have venules, which are smaller veins. Veins return blood back towards the heart. They're under very low pressure, so you measure pressure with this unit called millimeters of mercury, so 15 to 20 millimeters of mercury, small pressure. That's not enough pressure to return blood back to the heart. So because of that, because the blood doesn't flow with enough pressure, we need valves to prevent backflow. Okay? And then your muscles also help to move blood back to the heart, and then we go back to the vena cava. So, okay, and so I'll try to show you this. So blood is traveling this way, but it's under low pressure. And so we have these valves here. They close and they prevent the blood from going backwards. Okay, so that doesn't happen. Okay, so we keep the blood moving forwards. Okay, also when you flex your muscles, like when you go for a walk, the blood in your lower body, in your veins, it's under low pressure. But if you've got muscles on either side of this and they contract and squeeze, it helps blood get back to the heart. So moving around and using your muscles is good for your circulation. It helps the blood get back to where it's supposed to be. Okay? Now, here's my little demo of the blood flow. So blood flows in this direction. Okay? Goes to the lungs, down, up through there. Okay? All right, so this is just another look at it. I'll just slow it down. We go into the right atrium, through the tricuspid valve, into the right ventricle, up through the semilunar, the pulmonary semilunar valve, into the pulmonary arteries. We send blood to the lungs. The purpose of that is to pick up oxygen. Now blood's coming back into the left atrium, down to the left ventricle, through the aortic valve, into the aorta, up to the head and arms and upper body, and down to the lower body. Okay? Now, there is a red blood cell, if you can see that. So I'll just circle it here. Here's my red blood cell. Okay? The red blood cell travels to the lungs. The green dot is garbage, carbon dioxide. Okay? The yellow dot is oxygen. So watch what happens. The red blood cell picks up oxygen and dumps off carbon dioxide. Now your blood cells are full of oxygen. Okay, these red blood cells. And then they travel back into the heart. The only reason they go there is so they get pumped to the rest of the body. Okay? And so the blood takes the cell somewhere. Now, the cell is traveling through arterial, capillary. It has oxygen there. That cell, this cell right here, needs oxygen to live. Every cell in your body needs oxygen. So, we dump off the oxygen, and we pick up the carbon dioxide, the garbage. And then we go back to the heart through the venules and veins, back to the aorta, back to the lungs, dump off the oxygen. So just imagine that process. Every time you go like this, that's happening. Like that's happening all over your body. How cool is that? Here's kind of a disgusting look at the heart. It's really gross. Every time I look at this, it's like, ugh. Anyway, you can see the valves. Now, I'm just going to point out something here. The yellow pin. This valve here, if you watch it again, has 3 flaps. That's a tricuspid. Okay? Now that happens to be, I think that's the pulmonary, if I'm looking at that. That would be the pulmonary artery. But it has 3 flaps. Some of them only have 2. You'll get a better look at that in just a sec. Okay, so there you go. All right, so we keep moving here. There's another diagram of a heart. Now this shows things a little differently than the other one, and it's good to look at different diagrams, but some of the things are easily recognizable, like here's the thick muscle, right? So that has to be the left ventricle, okay? This is the aorta, right? This looks like the vena cava coming into the right atrium. And then the hard one here is to see how blood gets from here, but here's your pulmonary arteries to your lungs. Pulmonary veins, right? Okay, so there's that diagram. There's another diagram for you. There's another look at a heart there. Now, this one I like because it shows, if you look here, so that's the pulmonary semilunar valve, which you see right here. 3 flaps, okay? A bicuspid valve only has 2 flaps, okay? All right. Now I'm just going to show you, I went to a human bodies exhibit when I was in Las Vegas. So that's a real man right there. Like, that's real. This person donated their body to science. And the creepy thing here is that's his skin. And that's the rest of him, right? This is his body. And that's his skin. Like, wow. Anyway, so it's kind of creepy because you're walking through this place and you're like, man, these were all like people. But they've developed this technique where they can take and inject the body with a substance that plasticizes whatever gets injected, and then they can dissolve the rest. And so you can isolate the various systems, interrelated group of things, system of the body. So check this out. There's what you look like when you're like all peeled back. Weird, eh? That one's creepy. They split that guy's head in half and showed his heart. But watch this. Look at that. They have taken and injected the circulatory system and dissolved everything else. So Look at how many blood vessels there are: arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, veins. Look at them all. They're everywhere. They fill up your tissues like they're just the shape of you, and it's just so amazing. Look at that. And so you can see some major arteries, right? Like there's an artery, and then it starts branching into arterioles, and then capillaries, and then venules and veins, right? Like, so, oh, it's just so cool that you're a miracle. Your body is a miracle. You should be grateful for your body. Don't abuse your body, because look at that thing. Man, it's just amazing. Okay. There's the blood vessels going into your head. You got more blood vessels up there than you might have thought. Look at your hand. Notice how fine these are, these little capillaries, right? Notice how many blood vessels are in your fingertips, so you have good sense in your fingertips, hey? Okay, and there's a picture of your heart. Okay, one thing I didn't mention here is your heart sends blood to and from your body, right? But the heart also has to have its own arteries and veins that supply itself with blood. Okay. Anyway, so it doesn't show the outside of this like in the diagrams, but you can see it needs its own little system to supply itself with blood, not just the rest of the body. Okay, anyway, that's the end, and thanks for watching. You'll have an assignment to do with this, but human body, so cool.